completed?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll also have a quick question. So I have not been able to sit through all of the sessions, and some of the code snippets I'm not able to save off to be able to reference later. So is it possible that those code snippets could also be shared so that I will, as I'm going through the training later, I'll have them and not have to recreate them and type them out?
I will make sure it's okay with Sunny, but I have my notes document with all those code snippets. If I'm able to, I will give those to you.
That would be great. That would be very helpful, just because I'm having to do some of these sessions later than live.
I
So
understand.
thank you.
Of course. I'm going to share my screen. So on Wednesday, we finished off talking about row level filters. The example of the row level filter was applied to the Users Explorer based on the field user.state. It's got to be linked to the user attribute of state. Now we're going to talk about field permissions. Row level security is very useful, but often people also need to implement field level security. So far, we have reviewed how to manage access to folders, how to configure users and groups, how to control what people can do and with what data through roles, and how to implement access filters so users can only query a subset of the rows. What is field level permissioning then? It is the restriction of access to dimensions and measures. We can even go so far as to restrict access to joins and entire explorers. Implementing access grants is a two-step process. First, we need to create an access grant in the model, which is an access policy that references a user attribute value. In this example, our access grant is called Privileged Departments. It looks at the department user attribute and lets the user pass if the user's department is HR or finance. If not, then the user doesn't meet the access criterion and won't be able to access any LookML objects requiring it. That's the second step, taking the dimension, measure, join, view, or explore that you only want certain people to be able to use and inputting the required access grants parameter with the name of the access grant. In this example, the salary dimension is sensitive information that requires a user to be either an HR or finance department to see and query it. An object that has been restricted to a given user will have no trace of ever existing for that user. If required access grants is applied at the Explore level, the user would not see it listed in the Explore dropdown. However, it is possible for a user to have access to content that references objects the user does not have access to. That is, they could still have a requisite content access or folder rights and feature access, permission sets, to pull up a dashboard that contains tiles built off of the restricted Explorer. In these situations, the content would display as if trying to reference an object that had been deleted from the model. So in other words, nothing's going to show for the user. If there is a required access grant on a field, it would not show up in the Explore field picker for any users who don't meet the criteria. This behavior is different from that of hidden fields. Hidden fields could still be queried and visualized by modifying the Explore URL, but that doesn't work for fields restricted by access grants. If a user with access sends a look or explore URL containing a restricted field to a user without access, the user without access would still see the field. Instead, they would see a yellow bar at the top of the page stating that a field no longer exists on the Explore, or do you not have access to it, and it will be ignored. This message is intentionally wordy and ambiguous. The same one shows up when a field has been deleted from the model. Access grants applied to views or explore joins would cause the view to be absent in the field picker for non-privileged users. If a user with access sends a look or explore URL containing a field from a restricted view or join to a user without access, the user without access would still not see the field. Instead, they would see the same yellow bar at the top of the page as for a restricted field. I will walk through an example of configuring an access grant. Our older items Explorer has a join to the distribution centers view. This view is unnecessary for all employees except those in the inventory department. So as you can see here, this is the application of an access grant. It's called inventory. It's used off of the user attribute called accessible departments. And as of now, we're saying you must be from inventory or support in order to pass this access grant. Now to apply the access grant, in our example here, we applied it to the distribution centers join. So right now, if we look at our Explorer, we do see distribution centers. That is because my department is support. But what if we take out my department from the lookml and save, validate? I can refresh it. And now you don't see that table or view in the dropdown. You know, we could even apply it, let's say at the Explore level. Let's apply it to the user's Explorer. Refresh. And now, you know, it's weird. I think within the last couple of days, the user interface changed on us. And now the Explorer is here. But when I go into Data Analytics Bootcamp, I don't see the user's Explorer. And that's because of this access grant that we applied to it. Let's put my name back, or my department back in there. And now you see the user's Explorer. Do you want me to send you guys that code? Sorry if I didn't do that. Forgot. Those are the two snippets of code. Remember, it's a two-part step. First got to define the access grant, and then you got to apply it. You can apply it at the explore level, like we showed you down here at the join level, and we could even apply it at the field level. We can also enter more than one access grant name in the required access grants parameter. If so, users will need to fulfill all the access grants in order to query the lookml object. Intersecting grants occur when there are grants placed on multiple levels within the lookml, i.e., there is a grant at the explore level as well as an individual join. When there is an intersecting grants, the user must fulfill all the access grants in order to see the lookml objects properly. E.g., a field requires grants A and B, while its view requires grant C. You will need A, B, and C in order to see the field. The same applies for intersections between any other permission-able objects. Required access grants only works on the object itself where it is applied. Consider the employees.salary dimension from before. If we were to make a total salary measure summarizing that dimension, we would also need to put the same required access grant parameter on that measure. Otherwise, users would still be able to see the total salary measure. So it is important to check for dependencies and be diligent in applying required access grants on downstream objects. Looker has a content validator in the developer tab that scans all content in the instance for broken references. Don't worry, it does not consider any issues caused by access grants as broken references. LookML has a concept called extending, which makes copies of objects such as views. The copies inherit all the parameters of the objects, including required access grants. If you specify different required access grants for a copy, it will overwrite the original parameter values altogether. Consider taking our Advanced Developer Bootcamp if you are interested in learning more about extends. So it's our turn now. The legal team says, who has access to see personally identifiable information in Looker? We need to lock that down to only a few authorized employees. So we need to apply an access grant to the user email, first name, last name, and full name. There's a user attribute called isPII_viewer. We're going to create an access grant with it and then apply that as a required access grant on the email, first name, last name, and full name fields. So step one is defining the access grant in the model. So this access grant is called isPII_viewer. My user attribute for PII viewer is no. So that means I will be turned on and able to see as of things right now. And we are applying this to the users table. We go into the users view and you see this required access grant is applied to first name, last name, full name, and email. But right now, if I go into the users table, I do in fact see this PII information. I see email, I see first name, I see full name, I see last name. Let's go back into the model file and get rid of no. Save, validate, refresh the Explorer. And when I go into the users, now I don't see any of those 4 fields. I don't see email. I don't see first name or last name. And that's what this access grant has done to this Explorer. With regard to the admin panel, so far we have covered users, groups, roles, content access, and user attributes. Here are a few more pages that are good for LookML developers to know. Looker frequently comes out with new beta and experimental features, which can be found and enabled in the Labs page. Experimental doesn't necessarily mean a feature is less stable. It could just mean that the product team hasn't yet cemented their final version of it. Custom Fields, for example, has been around since Looker 5, 2018, and is extremely stable. If you can, check our release notes periodically for any new lab features that could be valuable. You can find a link to the release notes by clicking on the question mark icon in the top navigation bar. If you're interested in enabling a feature, talk to your Looker admin. Looker also deprecates features from time to time. These would show up on the Legacy Features page. Looker always gives notice of impending deprecations months in advance so customers have enough time to make any required changes to their model or content. This page shows how much time is left on each feature before it gets automatically disabled. If your company hosts your own Looker instance, this is somewhat less important, as your admins could postpone updating the Looker version. Under the database section, there are 2 pages that help admins and even non-admins. If you have the required permissions, monitor queries and performance. The queries page displays the 50 most recent queries run across the instance, along with how long it took each query to run. If a query were running right now, we could watch the runtime seconds tick by in real time. The details button, let me show you what we're talking about here. If I go to admin and queries, these are all of the latest queries that have run in the system. I think there's a lot more people than just us who are on this test system. If I say run a query, that query just showed up as the most recent. If I go into detail, gives me some information about the query, how long it took, start and end time, and then it's even got this full SQL in it. And I can open up in SQL Runner and work with it if I want to. Admins, we even have the possibility to stop a query. If, for instance, say a query is taking a really long time, and it's running it, we can stop it in this section. The persistent derived tables page displays PDTs and stats about their builds for database connections that are used by the model and are assigned model sets. We could see if each PDT has been built successfully or not, when the last successful build happened, and how long it takes on average to build. So remember yesterday or Wednesday, we did build a PDT using the order level total. And this shows that the last time it ran, it looks like today at 1:18 in the morning, very early. What if we build a quick query off of that table? It's called order level totals to large item. So this is using the PDT, and you know it's a PDT because it's going into this scratch, this PDT specific schema that's inside of your database, and it gives it this long hash name. Let's refresh this. And it looks like it didn't rebuild as I called on this PDT, and that must mean that it hasn't been triggered to be necessary to rebuild, and that I believe is based on the on the caching data group that we created. It uses the same as caching. Go to the systems activity. My apologies, I'm trying to find a dashboard to show you. We are approaching the end of our training. This last section should be a summary of everything you've learned in this boot camp. Provide users with meaning. To create a positive experience for Looker users, you should provide users with meaningful field names. You should group similar fields together for easier navigation. Remember, less is more. And you should add context to help users understand what fields in Explorers to use. Name measures with aggregate function or common terms. Name measures with aggregate functions or common terms, i.e. total underscore the field name for sum, count underscore the field name for counts, AVG underscore field name for the average. You should name ratios descriptively. For example, orders per purchasing customer is clearer than orders percent. Name yes/no fields clearly. Use order is returned instead of just returned. Avoid the words date or time in a dimension group because Looker appends each time frame to the end of the dimension name. Created date becomes created date, and you don't want that. In the Explore design, do not join in extraneous views. Use the fields parameter to limit field surface to the end user. Comment out or delete extraneous auto-generated explorers in the model file to reduce clutter when developing. For model organization, Joining many to one from the most granular level typically provides the best query performance. Use the fewest number of explorers possible that allows users to easily get access to the answers they need. Organize explorers using the group label parameter to help the end user find the correct explorer as easily as possible. For join design, use the date raw field when joining in on a date. Always define a relationship using the relationship parameter to ensure correct aggregates are produced, and always declare a primary key in the view file. For persistent derived table usage, choose the parameter data group trigger over persist for when you want to have data ready the first time someone runs an Explorer or on a schedule. Evaluate your data group trigger schedules such that tables are not building during business hours, replication processes, or peak usage points. Trigger the tables late in the night or early in the morning when ETL is completed. Always define indexes, distribution keys, sort keys, and cluster key partition keys to improve query performance. Generally speaking, indexes should be applied to primary keys and date or time columns. Now, the slides can be for this boot camp can be found on the additional resources page of the training.looker.com. That too. But I will also see if I can give it to you guys in an email if that's possible, just so you guys can have a hard copy. Any questions? For further learning, there's a lot of great resources. This is definitely one of my favorite parts about, I think, just working with Google software products in general. Just just how well documented things are, using Google to help you, and it's Looker, GCP, both have just great documentation. So here are some resources that you can use. YouTube actually has a lot of good Looker videos, more wrapped around dashboarding, but that's a piece that we haven't really talked about in this boot camp. We've really focused on LookML. What comes after our work is usually the build of dashboards, and maybe some of you need to learn that too. There's a lot of great YouTube videos. And you can also, we just had some recent members on our team who just picked up Looker, and it was very intuitive to them, and they got certified really quickly. So if you're kind of that same individual and you really get this LookML, I advise you to, maybe consider taking the certification exam for LookML. So thank you very much for this week and allowing me to offer you this boot camp. I hope you guys learned a lot with LookML and feel comfortable and ready to get started with this build that we're going to do for your company. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the training. It's covered a lot.
It sure did.
Yes, thanks a lot, Danny, for covering all the aspects. I'm sure we'll be using them soon. So even if we didn't completely grasp one of the concepts, we'll revisit it when we actually try to apply them. And I'm sure we'll be able to use your help in the code dev sessions coming up next week.
Of course. All right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your Friday, and have a great weekend.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Danny.
you too.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny. Bye. Same to you.
Bye.
Thank you.